Hi, my name is Silly and welcome back to the Little Reader's Corner. Today I am talking about some recent reads. So this is kind of like a wrap up at the end of a month, except I'm doing it in the middle of the month because I'm no longer sticking to monthly wrap-ups because they stress me out a lot. So we're trying something new. I'm calling it Story Chronicles. We'll see if I stick with that. We'll see if I like it. I am both going to be discussing the books that I am currently reading as well as the books I have recently read. I may skip over some books that I just don't care about talking about. Like, I do review some poetry books and the like on NetGalley quite often, but sometimes they're just quite meh. And I don't think you'll care to hear about them, so I won't talk about them, and that's fine. And in future Story Chronicles, I'm also going to be talking about movies and TV shows that I have enjoyed in the period between the recent reads. But since I have been in such a reading slump and have just felt like a slug for the past couple of weeks, I'm deciding to skip that section for today and just leave it for next time. Especially because I haven't finished some of the really awesome TV shows that I'm currently in, so I feel like I'm going to finish them before I talk about them. But before we get started, I would like to talk about something very exciting, which is I was gifted glasses. So Tijn Eyewear reached out to me and offered to send me some glasses. In case you didn't know, I don't have great vision. I cannot see myself in the viewfinder right now, so you know, eyewear is pretty exciting. And to open these boxes, I will have to put on my glasses again. Great. So Tijn Eyewear actually either originally was formed in Amsterdam or was created with Amsterdam in mind. That's why it's a Dutch name, in case you didn't know. And I am Dutch, so that's kind of exciting. So they sent me two pairs and they came in these cute little things. So let's try them on. I have already put them on a couple times because I just couldn't wait. I was very excited. So first we have these. Also, they have my new prescription in them, so my vision gets like extra HD when I put them on, which is very exciting. So I'm currently transitioning from my old prescription to my new prescription. So when I'm around the house, I'm still wearing my old one, but anytime I go outside, I'm wearing the new one, which is very exciting. And here they are. So I decided to go for like a grandpa vintage professor look. Whenever I put on my suit jackets, I do look like a little grandpa, which I'm very excited about. I feel like it was about time. So we have these. Of course, I forgot which ones these were. Oh, hang on. We have it right here. Okay, so this is the Thomas in coffee. Has my prescription in it. Great. Very exciting. And then we have these ones. So these don't technically have my prescription in them, but I think I can just go to a glasses store and get my prescription put in them. So that's exciting. So when I put them on, I can't see myself at all. So I don't fully know how I look in these because I have to get very close up in the mirror, but apparently when I did a poll on Instagram, people liked these the best. So that's always fun. And these are the Claire and Misty Rose. So you can find them on their website if you're interested. I will leave all the links down below. Thank you so much to Tijn Eyewear for sending me these glasses. I absolutely love them. And let's get on to the video. First, let's put on some vision. All right, we switched it up. I put on the new glasses because why not see in ultra high definition? So I haven't done a wrap-up in a very long time, as I may have mentioned in the beginning. This is a mixture of me being very terrified to not accurately describe a book, which is the whole point of my channel, so it doesn't make any sense, but here we are. But also, just when everything started really going downhill last year in March, I stopped doing them because they added stress to my life, and now there is a full year of books that I haven't fully talked about. And now it's May, and I haven't talked about the books from this year either. So we're just going to talk about some highlights. I have spoken of most of the books that I read in this past year through recommendation videos because somehow that just felt better to me. So instead we'll just toss in a couple recent ones and toss in a couple more next time, and it'll be great. Let's do this. So first I want to start off with my most recent read. So this is A Pho Love Story written by Lone Lee, and I just finished this. Unfortunately, this put me in a major reading slump, and thus this is the only book I've read this month so far. I'm still planning on reading all of the books I said I would in my May TBR. It's just, will they be read in May or May/June? Yeah. So the thing is, I was so excited to read this story. I absolutely love the characters. I absolutely love the family dynamics. But there is a large piece that was missing from the synopsis, which I feel like was important enough in the synopsis. I don't believe it is a spoiler in any possible way. But if you don't want to know anything about this story, I guess you could, click off the video or mute me or something. Basically, this story is about Bao and Lin, and their two families own competing pho restaurants that are across the street from one another. They've had this competition and competitive nature between these two families for a very long time. Neither of the main characters know where it came from or know why exactly, but they just know that they are rivals and they should never speak to another. Except at one point they do, and that is because Bao is in a journalism class and they end up writing food reviews together. So the way that this is described in the synopsis is a chance encounter brings Lin and Bao in the same vicinity. Despite their best efforts, sparks fly, leading them both to wonder why it took so long for them to connect. A chance encounter. I don't think it would have been that difficult to say it was a journalism class. I know that there is no need to put a content warning on a book for journalism because that is very specifically an anxious topic for me. Maybe for some other people, but very much is for me. I avoid reading about journalism. I avoid watching things that involve journalism unless I'm very passionate about whatever the thing is, then like I'll dive into it. But basically, I worked at a newspaper for 3 years. I enjoyed those 3 years. I have no regrets. I was the editor-in-chief of a newspaper for a year, and it was a great time, but it was the most stressed I've ever been in my life. And because of that experience, I'm very passionate about freedom of the press and the rights of journalists and all of that, and I'm very familiar with the topics. But I also just get so stressed when reading it. So I just avoid it. And this had a main plot point where the kid was in a journalism class and he was interviewing people. And for any other person reading this book, that won't be an issue unless you have a similar thing like me. But for me it was. So unfortunately, it took a very long time for me to read this, but I was adamant that I wanted to finish reading this story because everything else except for the journalism was really cute. It was fluffy. It had really great important topics that were discussed. And honestly, I think the journalism was well done in it. It was just very stressful to read. I don't remember what I rated this on Goodreads. Personally, very subjectively for me, it's a 3-star because of the stress while reading it. But generally, as a book, very objectively, it is a 4-star. So I think I might have given it a 4 on Goodreads. Maybe I gave it a 3, I'm not sure. But definitely a cute romance. There is absolutely no spice. So if you're looking for spice, there is no spice in this. Spice as in romance, not as in actual, like, chilies. There you go. Next up, we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I listened to this on audiobook also when I was very stressed. See, we're learning why I'm in a book slump now because of all of the stress. I can't read things when I'm stressed. It just doesn't work. But I was listening to the audiobook for Black Sun while I was moving. If you haven't seen the moving vlog, it's a fun time. I'm really stressed in it. And in it, I am flying from Hawaii to Washington State to pack up my storage unit, to ship everything to myself. A lot of stuff went wrong. But I made it to Washington, D.C. I don't have my boxes yet, but you don't have to worry about that. I do, so it's fine. But during that, I wanted to listen to many, many audiobooks. I listened to one. and it was Black Sun, which was a very excellent read. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I'm just going to read the summary that I wrote out for myself after I finished the book, just to keep things stress-free. Black Sun tells the story of a boy turned into a vessel for a god on the search for vengeance, and a priestess searching for a palace among the other priests of the sky. A teak woman, half human, half something older and akin to the sea, and the son of a crow clan. Those are the characters. The plot is very much derived off of who these characters are and what they're going through. So I think describing the characters makes a lot more sense than describing the plot. So the plot stems off of that. I loved this book. It's definitely among my favorite high fantasy reads. I absolutely loved it. The world building was phenomenal. I loved the writing. If you're interested in the audiobook, very good narration, highly recommend. I think I listened to it on 1.25 speed because also when I'm stressed I can't listen to audiobooks very quickly because it takes a lot for my brain to process things. So, excellent book, go read it. Another recent book that I read was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I've heard fantastic things about this book since the advanced reader copies were sent out months ago. I think it happened in fall of 2020 as far as I remember, and everyone who got a copy was raving about this book. I've been very excited about it. I think it was on my anticipated releases of 2021. It should have been. I'm pretty sure it is. And I loved it very much. It's my copy. I just remembered I actually have a physical copy right here with me, so here it is. This story is fan-flipping-tastic. I started reading it after I got my first dose of the vaccine, so I was very convinced I would be hit with some side effects at some point, which never happened. So that was fun. Basically, the story is about Grace Porter. She just got her PhD in astronomy. She has been working for this her whole life. Now she is searching for a permanent position in her field, and she decides to celebrate by going off to Vegas with her best friends, and then the next morning she wakes up and she realizes that she married a girl that she met in Vegas. And the story takes off from there. This is such a beautiful story. I love it so much. The writing is fantastic. I love the characters, I love the best friends, I love the main character, I love the love interest, it's a contemporary romance, and also it's quite short. It's under 300 pages, it's like 280. So if you want something soft and comforting that I think really captures the essence of the anxiety of academia, and as well talks about a Black PhD student and all of the extra added on anxieties that that brings as one of the only Black professional women in her field, in her study. So very fantastic book, definitely check it out. I loved it so much. Now, a complete change of topic. I also read Colin Jost's A Very Punchable Face, which is his comedic memoir, I think is the best way to describe it. Colin Jost is one of the two hosts of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. He hosts it with Michael Che. I love Weekend Update. It is my favorite part of SNL. I love it so much. I love the two of them together. It's such a great dynamic. So I heard that he had a book come out last year, and it just kind of went off the side of my radar. I was like, cool. And then at some point I was like, maybe I'll give it a listen. So I requested it from my library as an audiobook because I really love hearing memoirs or autobiographies told by the people who wrote them. Like if it's their own personal memoir, it just adds a little extra, you know? And I listened to it. I finished it in like 2 or 3 days. I thought it was fantastic. He tells a lot of comedic stories in his life, and he also at one point answers a lot of frequently asked questions about SNL, and he talks about his mom, who was a firefighter during 9/11 attacks, and it just really brings in a lot of great stories of moving moments in his life and just really stupid, dumb stuff he's done, and it's just kind of great. I really liked it. I didn't fully expect to enjoy it that much. thought it was really good. So there you go. I think I gave it 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I read Majesty. This is the second book in the American Royals series. I think there might be a third one coming up. I honestly don't want there to be a third one. I think this is fine as a duology. I think it has been wrapped up. I don't think there should be another book, but there might be. This book and the first one in it they're both written by Catherine McGee. The first one, American Royals, I absolutely loved. I thought it was fantastic. It's basically the idea that if the United States of America had been founded as a monarchy instead of a democratic republic, so that George Washington would have been King George Washington, and so on and so forth, and nowadays there would be a king, queen, royal person on the throne in America, and there would be like the Duke of Orange County, that kind of thing. So loved the premise, really loved the romantic dynamics and the characters in the first book, was so excited about the second book. Then the second book came out and I didn't read it for months, and I think Maddie got it for my birthday. I know I have the receipt in my book. It was either Maddie or Katie. I think it was Maddie. I think so. And I just held off on reading it. I don't know why. I didn't have any good reason. I just didn't do it. And then at some point I had to move all the way across an ocean and across the country, so I decided I had to quickly read it so I didn't have to physically bring as many books with me. I read it, didn't love it. I think I enjoyed the first half more than the second half, if I remember correctly. I talk about it in a vlog as well, where I try to read 7 books in 7 days. I think it just tried to replicate a lot from the first book, like how some sequel movies do, where this one joke or this one relationship dynamic worked really well. Let's do the same thing. I really hated that. Then everything was kind of building up to this really big event at the end of the book, and I felt like a lot of the relationship dynamics had to do the same pattern of everything is great, oh no, everything's a disaster, let's find this thing, or let's do this thing instead. And it felt a little cliche and overdramatic, and the ending was just so much drama. I hated the ending. And now I really hope that this series is done, because if they try to do the same thing with the romantic relationships in the next book, I'm going to lose my mind. No. So I think I technically gave it a 4. Honestly, I think it's a 3. It just really annoyed me. During this time, I also read 6 Angry Girls. Now this book is like 200 pages. I think it's less than 200 pages. It is very short. It is very thin. Maddie also gifted this to me. I was very excited to read it. I ended up not really liking it at all. It was trying to do something really cool. It was about this debate team, I think. No, it was about a mock trial team, and this one girl on the mock trial team got kicked off the team, and it was now like a boys club, and she decides to make her own team that includes women and non-binary people. And she brought in all of these people who she thought would be interested, and they created their own little team. And then she also goes to a knitting club, or maybe the other character goes to a knitting club. There are also 2 perspectives that are telling the story, but their voices, they sound so similar that I got them confused the entire time. And they're very different characters, but the way they talked and the way that their chapters were made them sound so similar, and they both had like complicated family dynamics, and I was so confused who was who the entire time. And this is supposed to be like this really badass group of humans coming in together to tackle the patriarchy in this mock trial team, and yet when every single one of the characters spoke, they all sounded identical, even though they were all from completely different backgrounds, bringing in their own personal style and flavor into this thing, and they just all sounded exactly the same, and it was so confusing. And this was less than 200 pages, and it took me a week to read. It was No, I gave it 3. Maybe it was a 2. It just makes me mad when I think about it. It was trying to do something really cool, and it was talking about women's rights and freedom of speech and all of these really big overarching topics, but then it would try to boil it down into these very plain statements, which doesn't ever work because the world is made up of grayscale and everything in between. So like, this book annoyed me very much. Next, we have a book that I absolutely loved that I read in, I think, a 24-hour period. That is Perfect on Paper. This is written by Sofia Gonzalez, and this book was wonderful. It is a contemporary romance. It has really fantastic bi representation. I have never seen such amazing bisexual representation in a contemporary romance. It also talks about biphobia, and I think it tackles it very well. Also, internalized biphobia, very well done. And there was also really great trans representation where the trans character Ainsley, she was just living her best gosh darn life, and that was it. She was just living it up, and it didn't have to be this big deal. You didn't have to see any transphobia or anything negative happen in that kind of aspect. And it was wonderful. She was just living her life, and she was just, I think, the sister or the cousin. No, she's the sister of the main character. Yeah, and it was great. It was lovely to see. It's a high school setting romance with a lot of friendship dynamics and relationship dynamics all out the wazoo. That's as basically as boiled down as you can get with the plot. But it was really great. So if you're looking for a contemporary romance, I don't think there was that much spice, but there was like a little bit of spice. I think there was a little bit of spice, maybe, but don't hold me to that, I think. And then there is one more book that I want to talk about, and that is Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant. One of my favorite contemporary romances of the year. I love this book so much. Oh my goodness. It's about a main character who just got into this really prestigious, really cool writing program at this arts high school. She decides to go, and her family moves closer to this school so she can attend it. And right when she starts it, she starts having major writer's block. She feels like maybe this isn't what she's meant to do. She feels like she has written everything she can, and that is it. And then she meets her neighbor, who is the peachiest of apricot humans you will ever meet. I love him so much. And I don't fully remember what the conflict of this story was because I read it a couple months ago. I think the internal conflict of the writer's block, and then also she has a kind of bit of a falling out with her best friend. Her and her best friend decide to try and spur her creative juices by sending her out on these kind of romantic tasks on her happily ever afters list to try to help her get out of this writer's block. This creates some conflict and some tension, and she starts going after this really popular guy at school, and she's like totally enamored with him, but then maybe there's someone else who could be interested in her, and conflict. I think it was very well done. It was a lovely story. I loved the characters so much, and the romance in it was so cute. Oh my goodness. Fantastic book. Definitely give it 5 out of 5 stars. Alright, those are all the books I'm going to talk about today. That covers a couple months of reading. I left out a couple rereads and a book I had to read for school and a random poetry book. Such is life. Didn't feel like talking about those, but that's fine. So let me know if you have read any of these, what you have been reading the past couple of months. Welcome to my Story Chronicles. This is what we're doing. That was it for today. Let me know what you think about the Story Chronicles idea. It's happening. If you made it this far, either put a star emoji or write star in parentheses, whatever you feel like doing. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you made it this far, you should definitely subscribe because you've clearly enjoyed the video, otherwise you would have left. And make sure to hit that like button, leave me a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, bye!